Hello and welcome back. We are at the fights today. Which, this is actually a fairly difficult place to get to, so I'm honestly wondering how all the people actually got up here, but I probably shouldn't question the game too much, should I? Anyway, I just want to do another quick video. I usually say quick video, then I end up talking for like 15 minutes, so not entirely sure. So this is related to religion, but isn't specifically directly about religion. But I thought it would be kind of an interesting look at how cultures did things differently. And in terms of it, I want to look at prophecy. So, pretty much, there are two different types of prophecy. There's Christian prophecy, then there's how prophecy is handled in most other cases. Judeo-Christian, I should say. So we'll start with kind of, the Greek, Roman mythologies and how they handled prophecy. And why I think it's significant, what I think it means. So prophecies, Greek prophecies and the like are more often than not what's known as self-fulfilling prophecies. In essence, they are prophecies that cannot possibly happen unless the prophecy was made about them. So the prophecy itself was an instigating factor in the events that followed. To give it an example of this, we'll go with probably one of the biggest examples, I think, which would be Oedipus. Oedipus really, the prophecy really hit hard. So Oedipus was raised, lived at home, raised by his parents. He was doing quite well, and this prophecy comes down to him that says that he is going to murder his father and marry his mother. And I think his reaction would be the reaction of anybody told something like that, which is like, I like my mother and ew, but ew, and murder my father. I like my father. Ugh, what the heck, man? It's just one of those prophecies you go like, what? So he does what really anybody does. So to avoid the prophecy, he leaves home. He leaves his village, leaves his home. And, and that would normally solve everything, but there's one little detail he wasn't told, which changed everything. And what he wasn't told was that he was adopted. So, what do you think happens? Well, he goes out traveling, ends up, killing a guy who attacks him, goes home, meets the guy's widow, marries her, and turns out, he just killed his father and married his mother. Now, we can criticize Oedipus's choices in this. I mean, personally, if I had a prophecy like that, I'd be like, okay, let's avoid older women. Let's avoid marrying anyone who is the widow of the person I just killed. But, he made some bad choices there, that's all I'm saying. But, the core of the prophecy was simply this. Had the prophecy not been given, he would never have left his hometown and village, and he would never have ended up killing his father and marrying his mother. And that's pretty much how prophecies go in that outside of Judeo-Christian. Most prophecies are self-fulfilling like that one is. Now let's take a step back, look at kind of the Judeo-Christian prophecies instead. So if you look at the different prophecies, they fall into a couple of different headings or groups. They're, but ultimately they're designed to bring comfort to the person receiving the prophecy. They're either, a prophecy of the future, but muddled enough that, we don't fully understand it until the future happens. At which point it's basically designed for only a select few to be able to understand what's coming and to prepare for it. I think Pharaoh's dreams that were later interpreted by Joseph were a big part of that. His dreams were predictive of the future, but they were so convoluted, so confusing that only Joseph could interpret them. Which was essentially, yes, he dreamed of several different things, but one of... We'll just go with the cow one. He dreamed of all these, well-fed cows out in the field. And it's like, okay, sounds good. Then, jumps to the next part of the dream, which is these 7 cows that are just really super thin and sickly cows. showing up and eating the healthy cows. And Joseph, he knew the dream was significant. He didn't know why, and finally found someone who could interpret the dream. And Joseph interpreted the dream, basically saying there will be 7 years of plenty, where you will have everything. You need to use this time to stock up, keep supplies, and so on, because 7 years after that, the 7 years represented by the sickly cows will be, 7 years of famine and destruction and death. So this particular prophecy of the pharaohs was very specifically meant for him, but it was also meant to be interpreted by someone who had essentially a prophet of the Lord, someone who had God's permission to interpret it, and it was meant to save people's lives. And Egypt, did quite well, and Joseph was able to thrive, in storing all the food they needed, and then, so that Egypt became like one of the few places in that time that was not adversely affected by the famine. So it was ultimately a hopeful prophecy there, but could only be interpreted with God's permission, so that I think is a very important one, but they're ultimately designed to help people, either to bring comfort or to bring, physical, emotional comfort or physical comfort, depending on the nature of the prophecy and the vision and so on and so forth. So I'm sure you can notice the difference between two different prophecy types. Self-fulfilling prophecies. So the basic concept of a lot of like the Greek mythology and a lot of other mythologies was basically boiled down to the gods were exactly like us, but they had ultimate power, and they basically epitomized the worst of humanity. They never epitomized the best of humanity. So when these mythologies did a prophecy, they were designed essentially just to mess with humans. And Oedipus, like I said, was a prime example of just the gods just messing with him because they could. That was really the only purpose of that prophecy, was to just mess with this poor guy's head. Whereas the prophecies, Judeo-Christian prophecies, are designed to uplift, to build up people, whether it's physically or more likely spiritually and emotionally. So, I just, like I said, I just find that interesting, and it's really of interest to note that just about every time you see a prophecy in modern storytelling, they go with the self-fulfilling prophecy. Part of the reason you do that is it's a really good narrative device. I mean, you have, the twist that, the prophecy fulfilled everything else. That's a big twist, and it's a good solid storytelling. But it's also, reflective of this idea that, anything beyond humans is designed to impede humans. It's designed to just mess with humans because they could, as opposed to the, shall I say, the nicer, I'm not sure if nicer is the correct term to use, but the more, uplifting prophecies of Judeo-Christian belief. And it's, it's just something I find very interesting. I think it's reflective of kind of a society when you start making all your prophecies, whether they're fictional or real prophecies, be self-fulfilling prophecies. By the way, if the term self-fulfilling prophecies is familiar with you, Freud, who used a lot of Greek mythology, referred to it. And from a psychological point of view, it's actually really, really interesting that if we firmly believe something in our mind, that something will happen through our actions. That's what self-fulfilling prophecy means. So for example, many years ago, they did a study on teachers in schoolroom setting. These were teachers of elementary school kids. So they told the teachers, basically they picked kids at random. These kids were about the same level of learning and understanding, and they would randomly pick the kids, and they'd tell the teacher that this kid is doing really, really well. This is really good kid, very good learner, very, very smart kid. Then they tell them that, well, this kid's really struggling, they don't understand the thing very well, and so on and so forth. And then they monitor the situation. By the end of the year, the kids that they said were doing well were doing very well in class. The kids that they said were struggling and not doing so well were indeed struggling and not doing so well. So the kids went from being average to either doing really well or struggling, depending on what the teacher thought about them. So if teachers were told that, hey, this is a good student, then that student became good. I remember being told this in several different stories where somebody would say something like, this, would you become friends with someone and you'd be friendly with someone, and then at the kind of punchline to the story would be that somebody would come up and say, yeah, I knew it would. I never thought it would work out between you and them. It's nobody likes this person. Doesn't get along with anybody. They're a horrible human being. And the person would respond, huh, nobody told me that. I thought they were just great people. So yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy is very pervasive in a psychological sense in our minds. It's what happens. It's how we perceive the world around us is based on what we already know to be true. So it's interesting that just in terms of prophecy, we tend to lean towards the self-fulfilling prophecies, in psychologically, but also in our literature, in mythology, and we forget kind of the uplifting aspect of prophecies that we find in Judeo-Christian. So in the Old Testament and the New Testament, prophecies are really, really good and for the betterment of all mankind. So anyway, that's my little rant on prophecies and kind of their philosophical, psychological conclusions and religious connotations of it. I hope you enjoyed this fight. It seems to me they're just doing the same sort of thing. I suppose I suppose the game wasn't really designed for us to be, observing the fights for a long time, but so they're just, going through the same choreography over and over again. But it's still, you know how it is. It's still entertaining to watch. I'm glad they did it. Anyway, like and subscribe if you like it. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.